IndyCar coverage is brought to you by the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Get your tickets in the link in the description and save 20%. Well, I'm just as happy as a clam. Welcome back to many of you to State Fair Park here in West Allis, Wisconsin. More importantly, at least to us, known as the Milwaukee Mile. And it's been almost 10 years since the Indy cars have graced this bumpy and worn out 1 mile oval, and I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm so glad that these race cars are back, and we get a double helping of IndyCar racing this weekend. Racing tomorrow, unfortunately on Peacock, and then on USA Network on Sunday, but them's the breaks sometimes. I think we're in for a good weekend. You know, this is, I think a lot of people don't really understand why Milwaukee is so important to the Indy cars, and really it goes back to before we called them Indy cars. They were called big cars or championship cars, Champ Car for short, way back in the day. In fact, I actually couldn't believe this. You know, this racetrack, I mean, I could believe this. This racetrack is second only to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in terms of total IndyCar races in history. This race has hosted 115 championship car races throughout the history since 1937, although two of those, the first two, were non-championship events. The very first Indianapolis car race or championship car race was held here on the dirt, believe it or not. This 1 mile oval was once a dirt track. It was held in 1937, won by the late, great Rex Mays. The first points-paying race was run here 2 years later in 1939. That was won by Babe Stapp, who was a very popular and successful championship car driver in the 1930s. The most winningest driver here at the Milwaukee Mile is Roger Ward, a 7-time winner here at the Milwaukee Mile. And the two most recent winners are Will Power in 2014 and Sebastian Bourdais driving for KV Racing in a Chevy AeroKit car back in 2015. And just kind of to put it into perspective, think about where you were in life in 2015 and think about where IndyCar was in 2015 and just consider how much time has gone by between the 115th or the 117th or 115th IndyCar race and the 116th and 117th IndyCar race. The two most recent winners, as I mentioned, Sebastian Bourdais and Will Power. Bourdais not here, although there are 5 IndyCar drivers who have raced here in previous years in the field. 2 of those have won, Scott Dixon in 2009 and Will Power in 2014. Now, what's interesting about Will Power is, you know, and one of the things we talked to Will in the bullpen about today are the quirks of Milwaukee versus some of the other oval tracks that we see Indy cars go to, such as Iowa and Gateway. And one of the things that I haven't thought about or considered, because again, I've never covered a race here and IndyCar hasn't raced here in almost 10 years, is that this is not a traditional oval. The second groove is the preferred line here at Milwaukee. The inside groove, or you might see in some of the video and photo stills, is a darker section of pavement. Well, that darker section of pavement isn't necessarily the preferred line. And I'm not going to explain it too much more because I think Will Power is a much more credible source on this, but just kind of listen to what Will Power and how Will Power thinks about this particular racetrack and some of his suggestions for racing at Milwaukee.
Well, so here you never ran the bottom. Like the reason they're doing the low line practices, I actually asked them to grind that dark patch on the bottom just to create more grip, because they actually had less grip. And that's what was good about this place in the past. If you pass on that, before it was degraded, it had more grip. So they're trying to rubber that in so there is an alternate line, because the standard line is the second lane. So you just run the second lane all the way around. Now, you know, maybe I need to ask a couple of these guys, let's just roll the top completely with a bit more banking. That might be the answer, because it's so low grip. That might be just the best way. It's hard to say. I have to go watch the video of the trucks to see if they were on the wall or slightly down.
So obviously, I think most of us were pretty happy with the race at Gateway. I thought that was just one of the most fantastic races I've seen in quite a while, certainly one of the best ones of this year, and maybe really in the last 5 years. And it really kind of caught us all by surprise. We were all talking about how Gateway was going to be processional, and we weren't expecting it was going to be super competitive, and you kind of heard some of the same things about this particular race. But, you know, again, Will Power had some really great insight on that, as well as Connor Daly.
Well, what made Gateway work was, one, at the first in, people saved fuel, so people who weren't saving fuel could go the outside. It kept that clean. 2, there was more downforce, so the cars slid less and created less marbles. And 3, the tire was harder, which also created less marbles, and that's what kept that open. So very, very track specific on what works. Because ultimately here I feel like a soft tire would be better. So you get some deg, there already is multiple lines. And you know, you don't worry about marbles as much because the track is very porous and the marbles fall down into those gaps, as opposed to like Iowa, which is ultra smooth. You just touch the offline, the marbles go nowhere. So very track specific, but they nailed the formula for Gateway.
I mean, I don't know until I get out there, honestly, because like Gateway I know really well, right? And I mean, even Gateway kind of opened up more than I guess I expected. I mean, really seemed like only 3 cars could run where they were running.
Sure.
But like,
that was enough.
It did seem like it was more open than normal. So I'm hoping that what I think could happen here is that some people could be like falling off a lot because of only the spread in the time that I saw in the test, because it must mean that it is harder to get everything right here. So I don't know yet, but I'm hoping that everything is just kind of a little bit spread out, and you might have to make a strategy call, or you might have to be like, well, if we pit an extra time and we can go fast, like maybe that's good. But still, like to make a pass happen, someone has to be really far off. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic only because of how wide the place is and how like the ideal line is not the bottom. So like it's very interesting.
And so this is a weird weekend. Anytime it's a doubleheader IndyCar weekend, it's a weird weekend. And this one in particular is very weird. There was only one on-track session today. It was a 3-hour practice session. Now, that sounds like a lot of time, but for an IndyCar team, you can never have enough time on the racetrack. And for an IndyCar driver, what do you focus on? Do you focus on qualifying, or do you focus on the race? These are the various answers drivers gave in today's media bullpen.
I think it's going to be heavy balance towards qualifying. You know, I think from, you know, a lot of the other guys did a test day here, and they did like a mock race, which it looked like it's going to be super hard to pass. So I think it's going to be very qualifying. It's going to be important to get qualifying right, so that's, I think, where we're going to lay our main focus.
Yeah, I mean, I would say both, honestly. Like, it's a different tire compound than what we tested here. Not much, but just a little bit on the left side. Hopefully it will make it better for racing. Yeah, you need a fast car to start up front, but at the same time, you need to work a little bit on the race. I think everybody's lucky that we all tested here, so we already got, like, let's say, 50-60% of the work done. But still, things change, and hopefully we can try some stuff that makes it even better on both ends.
All of it, and in the short period of time that we do have. Obviously, we tested here early in the season, right after Road America, and got a first test of what the track group really is. I think a lot of it has really changed when you come into the track now. It's a different track than it was back then. So I hope we can get through as much as we need as we typically do on each short oval, as we don't really have that much practice in general. So I think it's pretty normal.
Yes, it's tough, like it was in Iowa, and I kind of missed a bit on qualifying in Iowa, which cost me. But ultimately, when you look at the race, it did not cost me, but I qualified 21st because I didn't do enough qualifying work, and it was very difficult to get a run, and, you know, small track, 27 cars, and people on different strategies, so you just got to do the best you can. Yeah, ultimately it'd be nice if it was practice, then qualifying, because then everyone would be on the same thing, and then a practice for the race, but time doesn't permit, so we'll try work it out the best we can.
I'm going to focus more on the races. I mean, we have 2 races here, 250 laps times 2, so it's going to be a lot of racing out there, and you might want to, qualify up front. That would be great, but to do 500 laps with a car you don't really feel comfortable with, I think it's not a good idea. So I'm gonna focus, 80% or 90% on my race car this afternoon, and then do a bit of qualifying optimization. But focus on qualifying the top 10. I think that would be a good place, and then we go racing from there. Because if we have a car that I like, I know I can move forward from there.
We'll see what the car is like, right? Hopefully it's all qualifying focus for us. But if we're putting out fires and trying to make the car good, then it's going to be more race prep. We still have to do a long run. We tested here, as you said, and we weren't super happy with the car. So I think we've transformed it over what we've learned from since we tested here, because we went to Iowa and then Gateway, and we also went to the DIL and tested on the sim. So hopefully we're coming with something that's going to roll off the truck decent, and we'll see.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's obviously a lot of people who tested, so they can probably be more focused on, on the qualifying, because they did a lot of long race runs too during the test. I know our team did that too. But for me, I just have to get comfortable with the track. It's just obviously a little bit different than what I'm used to. But I think it'll be fine. I mean, it would be cool. I don't really understand the one practice thing. I mean, it kind of feels NASCAR-y, you know what I mean? Especially for an event that's 2 races. I feel like we could have done more. But again, I don't know how the numbers work. So we're going to make it work the best we can.
And so how did the practice session today go? Well, unfortunately, there was one incident of wall contact. Christian Rasmussen got into the wall in the middle of 1 and 2, but thankfully that was the only incident of the day, and he was A-OK. The top 5 today in terms of speed are Joseph Newgarden, Scott Dixon, Pato Ward, Felix Rosenqvist, and Scott McLaughlin, who's been so strong on these oval tracks in recent years. And I guess now's the point in the video where I start to talk about what I think we should be expecting this weekend. I think the Penske cars, this is not a hot take by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the Penske cars are going to be super strong. I say that not only with historical precedent, with the performance they've had on short ovals in the past, but also the fact that the Penske cars were the only ones really using the inside lane of this Milwaukee Mile on a consistent basis to pass other cars. Now, the good news is about passing, and when we're talking about passing, we always worry about these short ovals and whether or not they will be able to pass. But at least from what I've been able to observe, at least, let's say, the Andretti cars and Andretti equivalent cars, meaning the Meyer-Shank cars, and the Penske cars and the Penske equivalent cars, meaning the Foyt cars, have been able to make moves. Maybe it takes them a couple of laps, depending on how fast the car is in front of them, but they have been able to do it. The Penske cars, and in particular the actual Team Penske cars, not the AJ Foyt cars, have been able to go all the way to the bottom of the racetrack to get a little bit of clean air, find some grip, and make a move. So if we're talking about predictions, well, you're going to have a hard time betting against the 3 drivers of Team Penske, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, and Will Power. Now, which of those drivers will be in victory lane on Saturday and Sunday, who knows? But I think those are your kind of main picks if you're looking to pick somebody for this race. But I think it is going to be entertaining. As Connor said, I think it's a kind of a combination somewhere in between about what Will said and what Connor said. It's going to be important to have guys be able to run the bottom lane for sure, and based on practice, it looks like there are some drivers who are going to be able to run the bottom lane. But also, how much degradation are we going to see? How much of a spread through the field are we going to see? It was about 8 miles per hour on the speed charts today, fastest to slowest, which was about what we saw at Gateway. So that's probably a good sign, especially as the race progresses, as the tires fall off, as the fuel loads burn off. Hopefully that will also spread out the field a little bit, induce a little bit more passing, induce a little bit more lap traffic, and create the short oval racing that we come to expect from IndyCar. But I could not be happier to be here at the Milwaukee Mile. This track feels so much like a miniature version of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, I suppose it's not surprising that tracks built in the early 1900s or late 1900s, early 1910s could feel the same. Of course they do, makes sense, but yeah, this is a place that IndyCar racing should have always have been, and never should have left. And I think this time hopefully Milwaukee is here to stay. We'll see what the crowd looks like tomorrow. I thought the Friday crowd looked fine today. I think there was a good support for this, and hopefully the two races will bear out the same fruit. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so happy we're back, and we'll see you in the next video.